Part 118. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Liao. Chapter 1177. Muzi I asked Murongcheng if he had chosen a good name. Murongcheng said, let's call Xiao Ming first, and De Ming will think about it later. Even if it's a nickname, Dabao and Xiaobao are very perfunctory. Muzi I was angry. The boy's nickname doesn't need to be so detailed, just call him whatever you want. Murongcheng comforted Muzi I, go back to the ward to rest first, you only drank a sip of water after waking up, you have to go back to supplement nutrition, when will the child see you? It's alright. Muzi I really felt weak. Ever since she gave birth, she had been sweating intermittently. She was sweating profusely, and she had no strength to clench a fist. But looking at the two babies in the incubator, I couldn't get enough of them, and couldn't bear to leave. Just looking at it like this, my heart was completely moved, and my chest was warm and swollen. The little baby is so cute. Very nice. It seems like what Bai Wei said, when a child is born, she feels that all the sufferings she has suffered are worth it. Thinking of becoming a mother, raising the children herself, and building up a sky for them, Muzi I was a little eager to try. She looked at the other side of the glass window and asked the man beside her, Murongcheng, how does it feel to be a father? Murongcheng also looked at those two little things. The woman she loves must be happy when she gives birth to a child for herself, but, boys are mostly mischievous, like mud monkeys, not as cute as little girls. If it was a daughter, just thinking about the scene of Muzi I hugging her daughter, the older one calling her husband tenderly, and the younger one calling daddy in a coquettish voice, Murongcheng would feel his heart melt. But what about having a son? When I was young, I was naughty when I climbed over the wall, and when I was adolescence, I rebelled against my parents. When I grow up, I marry an unreliable woman into the house, and even have conflicts with Muzi I. It really doesn't go my way. Murongcheng frowned slightly, and said lightly, I feel a little stressed. Well, me too. Muzi I stared at the child and said with emotion, suddenly I feel that I have an extra responsibility and become more stressed than before. Murongcheng glanced at her, he felt that the pressure Muzi I mentioned was completely unnecessary. After seeing the child, the two returned to the ward, and Bai Wei had already arrived, taking out breakfast from the insulated box for Muzi I to eat. Muzi I had just given birth, her body was still weak, and her spleen and stomach functions were also weak, so Bai Wei didn't dare to make anything too nutritious, and only prepared shrimp porridge, which was light, delicious, and nutritious, and also supplemented with calcium. After eating a bowl of porridge, the body sweated even more. Muzi I's back was completely soaked in sweat, and she changed into a new set of dry clothes before lying down again. Bai Wei wiped her sweat with a dry towel, and said to her, during confinement, don't think about anything, eat well, sleep well and nourish your energy, the milk will be good, and the child will be healthier if he eats good milk. Hearing what Bai Wei said, the feeling of swelling in Muzi I's chest became stronger. She couldn't help pursing her lips and smiling, she couldn't tell what kind of mood she was in, she was happy, shy, curious, and a little excited. As if breastfeeding was a big deal. Bai Wei took good care of her, drew the curtains, and the light in the room dimmed. Muzi I closed her eyes cooperatively. She only slept for 3 or 4 hours in total last night. Now that her stomach was full, she quickly fell asleep again. I don't know how long I slept this time. Half asleep and half awake, he saw a vague figure in front of him, not Bai Wei, nor Murongcheng. Muzi I tried hard to open her sleepy eyes, only to find that it was the smiling female nurse. The nurse took her temperature again and said with a smile, the temperature is too high, so pay attention to replenishing water at all times. Muzi I nodded, then looked around the room, no one was there. The nurse said, They went upstairs to see the baby. I didn't know who pressed the fire alarm just now, and there was almost a big mess. Fortunately, it was a false alarm and there was no real fire. But the newborn was frightened, and everyone crying. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1179. Muzi I was startled. Fire alarm. Yes, didn't you hear it? It rang for a long time. The nurse smiled. You slept too deeply. Muzi I asked, is there nothing wrong? Well, fortunately, at first I thought there was a fire, and the entire building was evacuated, but it turned out to be a false fire alarm. Before the nurse could finish her sentence, there was suddenly the sound of running in a hurry in the corridor outside. Mixed with shouts and inquiries, one after another, it was chaotic. Something happened to the newborn. Is your baby in there? The police are all here. It is said that someone robbed the child, the nurse inside was held hostage, and the security door was locked. What should I do? My child is still inside. Muzi I was terrified when he heard this, and his face turned pale instantly. The nurse was also taken aback, and murmured, what's going on? It was a fire alarm and a hostage this morning. Don't be a prank again. As he spoke, he walked towards the door, ready to take a look. Muzi I sat up with her arms propped up, and hurriedly said, Nurse, nurse. Please take me to the newborn room. You don't want to go? The nurse showed embarrassment. It must be a mess over there, and you won't be able to help if you go. Even so, her own child is in the newborn room. How can Muzi I calm down? Thinking that Murong Cheng and Bai Wei were upstairs, Muzi I couldn't stay still. If it's messy, I'll come back, but I need to know what's going on over there. Muzi I insisted on going, and the nurse helped her out of bed, sat on the wheelchair, and pushed her out. There were bodyguards standing outside the door, and they went upstairs with Muzi I. She was sitting in a wheelchair, and it was inconvenient for her to walk up the stairs. After taking the elevator upstairs, she realized that the corridor was full of people. Doctors, nurses, police officers, and the baby's parents and family. Murong Cheng and the bodyguards he brought were also there. Although some people are trying their best to control the order, the scene is still chaotic. Many parents cried and begged the police to rescue their children. The police wanted to evacuate the crowd, but how could the parents who cared about their own flesh and blood be willing to leave? Just like Muzi I's mood at the moment, she knew she couldn't help, but after hearing about this kind of thing, especially the child inside was still crying in pain, how could she calmly wait for the news in the ward? Can't do it at all. There is a security door in the corridor leading to the newborn room, which is double locked and extremely heavy. It was originally intended to provide protection, but now it has become the biggest barrier to rescue. The police stopped the pushing crowd 2 meters away, and Murong Cheng's men were about to force their way out. The security door is locked from the back of the door, so they can use a gun to break the door lock structure. The hostage taker seemed to be mentally disturbed, yelling indiscriminately, and had no desire to communicate at all. Every second the rescue outside was delayed, the danger of the newborn baby inside would double. However, just as the police and Murong Cheng's bodyguards were about to forcefully break through the door, a pungent smell began to fill the air. This smell severely stimulated everyone's nerves. It's gasoline. He wants to light the fire. Someone in the crowd yelled, and then everyone went crazy and rushed to hug the guns in the hands of the police officers and bodyguards. Don't shoot. Don't shoot. Just splash a little spark, and the whole place will explode. The feeling of protecting the calf made people hysterical, and even the mother who had just given birth also rushed forward, with incredible strength. In the chaos of pushing and shoving, it was unknown whether the gun went off or the police deliberately shot to deter them, when suddenly there was a bang gunshot. Deafening. There was a moment of silence. A police officer shouted angrily, "The fifth floor is completely under martial law. Everyone evacuates. If you want your children to die faster, keep rushing forward." Another police officer said, "The fire engine is about to arrive, and the rescuers will break through the window to enter, so there will be no explosion or fire hazard." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Liao. Chapter 1180. A black face deters, and a white face persuades. The family members of the newborns around here finally regained some sanity, and the crowd began to evacuate. Some take the stairs, some take the elevator. At this moment, there was a loud bang. The explosion sounded violently. The whole building seemed to shake. Ah 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 ah. Dash. The crowd around screamed in horror, and the crowd that had just restored a little order collapsed. It's all messed up. People seemed to be headless chickens, the corridors seemed to be swarming, and some people were frantically crowding into the elevator. Muzi was sitting in a wheelchair, there was no way to avoid it. The nurse anxiously protected Muzi's body, and shouted, "Let the elderly and women come in first. The elderly and women come first. Life is at stake, who cares about etiquette and demeanor?" However, the quality can only be shown in dangerous moments. Some men really gave up their positions and helped the weak mothers go in first. Those who refused to leave were also forcibly sent into the elevator. The elevator door closed slowly. Muzi watched the chaos outside, her heart was beating wildly. The enclosed space intensified her panic, and her ears were full of suppressed cries. She clenched her hands tightly, thinking desperately about the whole process in her mind. Someone pressed the alarm bell as a prank, then there was an accident in the newborn room. The police and firefighters who were attracted by the false fire alarm arrived at the hospital just in time to deal with the hostage takers, but gasoline appeared at this time, causing chaos, and then the explosion now. Where did the explosion happen? The explosion was too loud to be sure it was coming from the newborn room, maybe upstairs, maybe downstairs. Will the baby be okay? Murong Chang, is there something wrong? When the elevator door opened slowly, they had already reached the outpatient hall on the first floor, and people around them left one after another. In the end, only Muzi and the nurse behind him were left in the elevator. The elevator doors closed again. The nurse pressed -1, that is the garage on the basement floor. From the reflection of the elevator door, Muzi saw the nurse standing behind her, still smiling. She suddenly realized something, but it was too late. The veil covered her mouth and nose with the breath of ether. Muzi struggled weakly, and at the last moment when her consciousness disappeared, she was only thinking in her mind, why is her their target? The rescue team broke through the window through the ladder of the fire truck and subdued the hostage takers without any casualties. The other party was a man suffering from mental illness, holding an imitation pistol in his hand, mumbling that he would set himself on fire if he didn't give him a child, and poured gasoline on his body. The source of the explosion was also found out, and it turned out to be Muzi's senior ward. The room after the explosion was charred and black, the windows and doors were all broken, and only the wreckage remained of the beds, tables, and chairs in the room. There was no sign of Muzi. Such a violent explosion will definitely not kill people, but it will not leave no bones. However, there was not even a single hair in the room. Murong Cheng stood in the wreckage, his whole brain seemed to be wooden. Then, it hurts. The headache is splitting, the lungs are burning, and the whole body is aching. Every nerve was stretched to the extreme, and then it hurt every inch of it. There was no wound and no bleeding, but the body was trembling in pain, even breathing. His eyes gradually turned red, and he looked at the bodyguard he left behind. Where's the person? The bodyguards looked ashamed and lowered their heads. Murong Cheng was furious, and the surging blood rushed straight to his forehead. Where is the person who showed you? During the evacuation, there were only a group of elderly women in the elevator, and the bodyguards were tall and burly. If they squeezed in with Muzi, it would take up a lot of space, so they didn't go in during the chaos, but went down the stairs. When they got to the fourth floor, they found that the room had been bombed, and Muzi was nowhere to be seen. They sensed that something was wrong, and immediately went to find. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1181. However, looking for it at this time is tantamount to finding a needle in a haystack. There was another kidnapping case and another explosion in the hospital. Upstairs were police officers blocking the passage, and downstairs were patients and their families running in panic. Where will Muzi be? Maybe she went to the wrong floor in the panic, maybe she was unwell and was taken away for emergency treatment, maybe she was taken away. No one thought that Muzi would become a target. Murong Cheng didn't expect it, and neither did Muzi. The previous Black Rose serial murder case went round and round, but the killer went straight to Murong Cheng in the end, and now that Muzi had just given birth, there was no easier target to deal with than those two newborn babies. As long as you hold the baby in your hands, you can not only threaten Muzi, but also Murong Cheng. But the child is fine. The child was sleeping in the incubator safe and sound, but Muzi had disappeared. When Muse's consciousness was a little clear, she found that the environment she was in was shaking all the time. She is in a car. I vaguely heard voices in my ears. It was the nurse. Her laughter was crisp and soft, and she said, "What a long motorcade, is the president here? What a coincidence." The man driving in front said indifferently, "I should have heard the news that she gave birth, so come over to see." "Ha, then when he arrives at the hospital, won't he be shocked? There are so many people, it's really lively." The nurse gloated at his misfortune and asked, "Are we going out of town now? The intersection in the direction of leaving Beijing should be under martial law now. Don't worry, change cars at the intersection ahead, and avoid it first." The man's voice was always indifferent and calm. Muzi recognized that it was Mu Zenning's voice. She thought to herself, is Mu Zenning still unwilling to let her go? Last time, he drowned her in the bathtub and wanted her to die. What is he going to do this time? She tried very hard to keep herself awake, but her consciousness was filled with mud, heavy and painful. She also thought that it should be less than 8 hours since she gave birth to her child, and she hadn't had time to take a good look at the child. The car stopped, and I didn't know where it was going. I just felt that the surroundings were extremely quiet. Then the door opened and someone picked her up and put her in another car. It was an SUV with a wide rear seat. The seat was folded down, and she was lying on it. When she moved slightly, she touched a soft body. Muzi tried her best to open her eyes, and saw an immature and familiar face within a short distance. It was the little girl who jumped out of her car last time. The little girl closed her eyes tightly and seemed to be in a coma. The nurse followed him into the car, saw Muzi opened his eyes, and smiled softly, "Wake up, don't be afraid, we'll be home soon." After finishing speaking, he stretched out his hand and gently touched Muse's forehead. Muzi wanted to turn the head, but the stamina of the anesthesia hadn't passed. She was so weak that she couldn't even speak, her stomach was churning, and she wanted to vomit. She still couldn't figure it out. As a wanted criminal, how could Mu Zenning bribe the nurses in the hospital? And it happened to be the nurse on duty that day. The car started up again, and Mu Zenning drove in front without saying a word. He didn't communicate with Muzi, but the nurse kept talking non-stop, happily. "I'm smart, right? Even though there are so many policemen and bodyguards outside, I still caught you. I only said women first, but the bodyguards really didn't enter the elevator. Haha, it's so funny. It's useless to check the surveillance. There are surveillance blind spots everywhere in the city. If they change cars casually, they will lose their target. They are stupid. The more she talked, the more proud she became. I captured the president's daughter by myself, I'm so smart. Probably thought she was noisy, so Mu Zening called her from the front, Tang Tang. The nurse closed her mouth, smiled, leaned close to Mu Zi's ear, and whispered, did I say it right last time? The one in your stomach is a boy. Mu Zi was horrified, and finally understood what. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1182. Mu Zi's disappearance caught everyone by surprise. The mentally ill patients attracted the attention of the police on the 5th floor, and the explosion on the 4th floor caused the patients on the 4th floor and nearby patients to flee in a hurry. The hijacking and explosion did not directly cause casualties, but the pushing and stampede incidents injured countless people. The strength of both the police and bodyguards was greatly limited in the chaos, and the arrival of the presidential motorcade escalated the chaos again. To protect the president, to evacuate the crowd, to escort the newborn to the hospital safely, and to check whether there are other explosives in the hospital. Also check the surveillance to find Mu Zi's whereabouts. Each of this series of actions is extremely urgent and extremely important. No matter how many people there are, it seems that there are no skills at the moment. All airports, railway stations, and transit hubs are on alert. Additional police officers at every highway intersection outside the city to screen passing vehicles. All traffic policemen in the city have received urgent tasks, and once suspicious vehicles are found, they will be stopped immediately. Not only that, hotels in the city also received photos from the police, and if they found someone who looked similar to Mu Zi or a nurse, they should report to the police as soon as possible. This can be said to be the largest search and arrest operation in Jingling City. The police station held an emergency meeting, the president attended, and Murong Cheng also attended. The police made a report on the arrangements and countermeasures. Sidu Yan looked solemn, and asked in a deep voice, if you can't find it, what is your next plan? We will issue orders from the General Administration to the Sub-Bureau, and the police officers from the Sub-Bureau will then notify the police in the communities to check whether there are suspects in the residential areas of the city one by one. As long as they are people, they need shelter, food, and water, unless they drill a hole in the ground, or you will definitely find it. This is true. All the intersections leaving Jingling City were blocked. They couldn't escape and had to find a place to stay. They couldn't go to hotels and hotels. Residential areas were also being watched by community police. It was impossible to escape. But Murong Chen knew that there was a ghost among these people. A cunning and dangerous ghost. The police's method may be effective in dealing with ordinary wanted criminals, but it must be greatly reduced in dealing with a ghost. Sitting here is a waste of time. He got up and walked out with a dark face, ignoring Sidu Yan's roar behind him. The door of the conference room was closed heavily with a bang, and everyone's heart trembled. The report is just a report, whether it can really be found is unknown. When Murong Cheng returned home, Wang Zhan, Du Hao, and Huang Logui were all there. Ironically, if they could come back earlier, even if it was only a day earlier, maybe things would not have evolved to this point. There was deathly silence in the study. They all knew the news of Mu Zi's disappearance, and they only felt that Murong Cheng's silence at this moment was the tranquility before the storm, and they all dared not breathe for fear of causing trouble to their upper body. Others can keep silent, but Wang Zhan has to. Murong Cheng was still waiting for his explanation. We went to the ghost village, but there is no effective way to kill ghosts. Since ancient times, the methods of Taoist priests and mages are nothing more than suppression, subjugation, and dispersal. Therefore, the people in the ghost village made this thing together. In front of Murong Cheng was a jet black long wooden box. The wooden box was opened, and inside was a dull metal dagger wrapped around dried wicker. The hilt is engraved with distorted patterns, while the blade is rough and cold. We found the ghost's corpse, ground it into powder, and mixed it with bronze to make this knife. It can suppress evil and transform evil spirits. As long as we stab it, it can be subdued into the knife. Wang Zhan paused and lifted it carefully. Glancing at Murong Cheng, he continued, the forging process is cumbersome and complicated, and it took time, so I came back today. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1183. Murong Cheng held the knife in his hand, pulled off the bound willow branches, his eyes shot inch by inch from the edge of the knife to the handle. Be sure to hit the chest, Huang Logui reminded in a low voice, about the location of the appointment Tanzong. Murong Cheng looked over. His deep eyes were cold and frosty, and the black pupils glowed with blood, like a beast, like a devil. Huang Logui lowered his head shyly. If you can't find Mu Zi, and you can't find that ghost, no matter how powerful this knife is, it is useless. The sky is big and the earth is big, even if it is limited to this jingling city, it is too easy to hide a person in a corner. Otherwise, Bai Wei would not have been found until now. Today's era is indeed advanced. There are monitoring electronic eyes all over the street, bank flow can be tracked in minutes, mobile phones can be located, and identities are networked across the country. But at the same time, fake things are also increasing day by day. Fake license plates, fake identities, fake accounts, and even fake faces are enough to confuse people. Maybe I will find Mu Zi tomorrow, but maybe it will be a month, 2 months, half a year. Would she never come back? An indescribable fear welled up in Murong Cheng's heart. Even during the time when Bai Wei disappeared, he was never so terrified. After all, no matter how hateful Mu Zishuan was, at least he loved Bai Wei, but Mu Zhenning. Mu Zhenning has ulterior motives. When Mu Zi woke up, she was lying on a large and soft bed. She didn't get up immediately, but opened her eyes and looked around quietly. The room is large, but it looks crowded, because there are many human dolls and puppets, on the carpet, on the table, on the cabinet, everything you can see. In addition to the dolls, there are many drawing papers and colored pens scattered on the ground. The graffiti on the paper are messy, like the works of kindergarten children. It's like a children's room. Mu Zi tried to sit up, she had recovered some strength, and then she found that her feet were shackled, with a half-meter-long iron chain connected between them, which was heavy. This kind of shackles does not hinder walking, but running is definitely impossible. And her hands were not bound in any way. Hands are free. Why didn't they cuff her hands too? Is it a moment of kindness, or is it certain that she cannot escape? Mu Zi was thinking, and turned her head to look at the window. She wanted to open the curtains to see where she was right now. When I got out of bed, the iron chains on the leg irons made a whoosh sound. Mu Zi was slightly taken aback. I don't know if such a sound will alarm the captors outside. With this level of concern, she did not rush to move, but sat on the edge of the bed and listened attentively to the movement outside the room. There was the sound of children running outside. Da-da-da, da-da-da. The little girl's laughter came, clear and melodious, jumping with joy. Mu Zi heard her say, "Give me a taste. Give me a taste." The sound gradually approached, and the door opened. Not surprisingly, she saw Mu Zhenning appearing at the door. His eyes drooped slightly, and the little girl beside him smiled brightly, with an innocent expression on her face. Looking back, the nurse was nowhere to be seen. Is it dead? Muzi's heart suddenly shrank. Muzening came over with a tray and put it on the table beside the bed. The tray contained food for 2 people, which looked plain but balanced in nutrition. The little girl picked up a bowl of steamed eggs with shrimps and ate with great relish. Seeing Muzi motionless again, he opened his eyes curiously and looked at her. "Why don't you eat it? There's no poison in it, it's delicious." Muzi looked at them coldly, not hiding the vigilance and disgust in his eyes. How could she have lunch with these 2 in peace? "Are you crazy?" Muzening said lightly, "You are so weak, how can you maintain your health without eating? Don't you want to escape from here?" Muzi inhaled slowly, and asked him, "Muzening, what exactly did you raise?" "Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again." Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1184. Muzi knew that Muzening raised ghosts. She was once in Muzening's room, unable to move as if being pressed by a ghost. She also once asked Muzening for help, asking him to use his so-called magical powers to find Baiwei's whereabouts. But the ghosts at that time were invisible, hiding in the deep darkness. But now, in broad daylight, she slipped from one person's body into another person's body recklessly. This is simply sensational. Back when she was a soul, she couldn't touch anything, let alone enter a human body. A gust of wind could blow her away. Why is Muzening's ghost so different? Muzi's question made Tang Tang laugh. She giggled while eating the custard. Muzi's scalp was numb. There was only a small bowl of custard, and after Tang Tang finished eating the custard, he picked up another custard bun and gnawed on it. Muzening said, "Eat vegetables too." Tang Tang nodded, picked up the broccoli on the dinner plate with a spoon and ate it, with a small mouth, but her eyes kept staring at Muzi. If Muzi hadn't already realized that she was a ghost, she would definitely find this little girl cute. After Tang Tang finished eating, Muzening asked her to wash her hands, and she obediently went. Then, only Muzening and Muzi were left in the room. "Eat well, live well." Muzening looked at her, the corners of his mouth were slightly upturned, as if mocking, "There is hope only in life, isn't it?" Muzi looked at him silently. He seems to have changed a lot, and it seems that nothing has changed. The image of being shot by him that day came to mind. At that time, her whole body was in pain, and then Muzening, did he grab her by the hair, or pinch her neck? I can't remember clearly, but I only remember the violent splash in front of my eyes. She was drowned in the bathtub, the strength of her whole body was withdrawn, and she was suffocated. Muzi didn't know if this was post-traumatic stress disorder, but now, just looking at Muzening quietly, the pain of drowning began to rush out from every corner of her body. She lowered her head, looked away, and said in a low voice, "This sentence is more applicable to you, Muzening. You brought me here, you are seeking your own death, you ruined your own hope." Hearing this, Muzening smiled faintly. "Do you think Murongcheng will let me go if I don't move you?" Muzi remained silent. She knew that Murongcheng had been looking for Muzening's whereabouts. Muzening almost killed her, and it was impossible for Murongcheng to let him go. Anyway, it's death, why don't you do something interesting? Live in peace. I hope you can live until the day Murongcheng finds you. After Muzening finished speaking casually, he got up and left the room. Muzi sat alone in the room for a long time. Her gaze fell on the tray containing the food. Finally, she picked up a bowl of porridge and swallowed it expressionlessly. The porridge had been left for a long time, and it was already a little cold. When it slid into her throat, it was like a cold and greasy snake, making her want to vomit. She suppressed the feeling of nausea, drank the porridge quickly, and then ate some vegetables indiscriminately, not in the mood to savor the taste. She has to eat. She has to live. Only by recovering your body as soon as possible can you have more energy to find a way to escape. After Muzi finished eating, Tang Tang happily came in, took off her slippers and climbed onto the bed, saying that it was time for a nap. Muzi didn't want to sleep on the same bed with this child. Muzening looked at her with a sneer, "There are only 2 beds at home, do you want to sleep with me?" Muzi retorted, "You can throw me out, I am willing to sleep on the street." "How can that work?" Tang Tang immediately sat up, looking at her with concern. "It's so cold on the street, it will freeze you to death, you have to confine yourself to confinement and take good care of your body, otherwise what will happen to you in the future, where is the child?" Muzi's complexion suddenly changed, and his teeth clenched. "What did you say?" Tang Tang reached out to touch Muzi's slumped abdomen, and said with a smile, "It's so warm here. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again." Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1185. The little hand on his stomach was cold, soft, and shuddering. Muzi was terrified, looked at Muzening in shock, and asked him, "What did she mean? What exactly are you trying to do by bringing me here?" Muzening's eyes sank. He frowned slightly, turned around indifferently, and left the room. Muzening, Muzi shouted sharply, "Answer me. She is weak, but she is not without strength." Seeing that Muzening is about to go out, she wants to get out of bed and chase after her with all her hands and feet. However, just as she was about to stand up, she was immediately pushed down on the bed by an unknown force. Hands, feet, arms, legs, all can't move. Even the voice was hoarse, as if someone had choked her throat. Tang Tang stroked her body very intimately, and said, "Relax, relax, you're so nervous, how can you sleep? Nap is very important, it can help you refresh yourself." When Tang Tang said to relax, Muzi felt that the pressure on her body was really loosened, but she still held her tightly and couldn't move. She narrowed her eyes in pain, her eyelashes were wet with sweat, and she vaguely saw many vague figures standing beside the bed. There are men, women, old people, and children, they have blurred faces, stretch out their hands, or grab her arm, or pinch her ankle. Muzi's heart kept sinking. No wonder. No wonder. No wonder they were confident. It turned out that Muzening and the little girl were never the only ones in this house. "Let me tell you a secret." Tang Tang lay on her side, and said in a good mood, "People can raise ghosts, and ghosts can also raise ghosts. Although they are stupid, it is easy to trap you." Arrived. These little ghosts include the lonely souls that Tang Tang arrested from outside, and those who were originally killed by her. They help her when they have something to do, and they are her rations when they are not. Muzi was lying on the bed, her mood had completely calmed down at this moment. It wasn't that she was strong enough or bold enough, but that when things got bad enough, so bad that she knew she was powerless to struggle, her emotions fell into a deathly calm. "Why does it have to be me?" Muzi asked her. "If you want to have a baby, any woman can do it." "But Muzening likes you," Tang Tang replied. Hearing what Tang Tang said, Muzi just wanted to sneer. It turns out that if you like someone, you can shoot her without hesitation, drown her cruelly, separate her and her flesh and blood, and forcefully lock her up in this place full of ghosts and ghosts. What is this like? It's all bullshit. Tang Tang said innocently, "He likes you, so I like you too. When you give birth to a child, he will be the father and you will be the mother. Our family is together, so happy." After finishing speaking, he added in a very serious tone, "We will treat you well." Nonsense. Muzi didn't want to hear it. Recalling the process of her being taken away, she felt resentment in her heart. The mentally ill upstairs is a smoke bomb you put. I shouldn't have been fooled, I shouldn't have left the ward. "Of course you will leave the ward," Tang Tang said, "I put a bomb when I went in. I wanted to pretend to find the bomb, and then trick you out, and then detonate it when your bodyguards enter the room to check. Well, It's a pity that they didn't kill them, but it doesn't matter, although it is a little different from the plan, I still succeeded. She was complacent. Am I so smart? Musi I didn't want to listen to her. Every word she said made Musi I feel cold. Her whole body was cold. It almost turned the newborn room into a crematorium, and almost killed the nearby bodyguards and innocent patients. However, in its eyes, these things are just games. It has no concept of right and wrong. Killing people, in its view, may be as simple as eating. Musi I clenched her teeth and closed her eyes. She was thinking in her mind, is it the way it was originally, or Musenning taught it to be like this? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1186. Musi I fell into a deep sleep. She didn't know how she fell asleep. Under the circumstances, sleeping was more like a passive resistance, a kind of escape. When he woke up again, Tang Tang was not on the bed, and there was a reddish glow from outside the window through the cracks in the curtains, and fine dust swayed in that beam of light, making the room darker and dreary, like a prison cell. Musi I got out of bed and opened the curtains. What came into view was a cement courtyard wall, which was very low, and one could see the scenery behind the wall, a large wheat field beyond sight. But she didn't expect to be able to escape through the window. Because although the window is open, the anti-theft net is installed outside the window, and the connection has been welded dead. Judging by the weather, it should be around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Looking at the environment, this should be a village on the outskirts of the city, and the house is a self-built house that is common in rural areas. Musi I guessed that the house would not be too far from the expressway. In this way, he could hide his tracks and observe when the police would evacuate at the exit of the expressway. Her heart moved slightly. If there is really a highway nearby, means, as long as she can escape, the possibility of being rescued is very high. The premise is that she wants to leave the house. Musi I lowered her eyes, looked at the shackles on her feet, and then walked out slowly. The living room outside is large, with few furniture, and it looks empty. There is an LCD TV against the wall, a couch in the center, and a children's splicing foam floor mat between the sofa and the TV. Sitting on the floor mat, Tang Tang saw Musi I coming out, picked up the remote control, and turned up the volume of the TV. It was only then that Musi I noticed that the cartoon was playing on the TV, and the little girl seemed to be afraid of waking her up, so she turned her voice down very low. This thoughtfulness made Musi I feel that she was not blessed to bear it, so she asked blankly, "Where is the bathroom?" Tang Tang quickly stood up, ran to a door, and opened it to show her. Musi I walked over. Tang Tang immediately ran back to sit on the floor mat, and continued to watch the animation with a particularly focused expression. Seeing her appearance, Musi I felt complicated. If it weren't for knowing those things, the little girl in front of her looks really innocent and cute. Walking into the bathroom, the inside is also very big, more than enough for a double bed. The self-built houses in the village seem to like to build spacious no matter what. Musi I rummaged through the bathroom, clean towels, toothbrushes, toilet paper, tampons, and several boxes of unopened women's underwear, and even personal care products. Everything was available. It seemed that they really planned to let her confine her in this ghost place. She stayed in the bathroom for a while. Drenched with lochia, sweating all over her body, her hair was sticky to her skin, she was weak and embarrassed. "Why did you end up in such a helpless situation?" Musi I gritted her teeth, took a dry towel to wipe the sweat off her body, and wiped her chest, where it was swollen and painful, excruciatingly painful. She burst into tears. "Think of children. I gave birth to them through untold hardships, But I never fed them. There was a knock on the door outside. Maybe it was because she stayed in the bathroom for too long. Musenning asked outside the door, "Do you need help?" Musei wiped away her tears vigorously, thinking, "Who cares about your hypocrisy?" Nausea. After tidying herself up, she came out of the bathroom, and Musenning handed her a small bowl of soup, which smelled strongly of traditional Chinese medicine. Musei frowned and didn't move. "Biochemical soup, for postpartum care," Musenning said. The corner of Musei's mouth curled into a sneer. It was really a standard confinement meal. Since it was to take care of her body, she would not intentionally go against her, but the smell was terrible. Musei frowned and finished drinking, and returned the bowl to Musenning. Mouthful of astringency. Tang Tang, who was watching cartoons, suddenly got up and ran in front of her, and spread out his hands, holding a toffee in his palm. "This is sweet." Tang Tang's eyes were flattering. Musei stared at her for a while, then looked away indifferently, ignored her, and walked away alone. "Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again." Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1187. Musei walked around the house inside and out. The house has 2 floors, people live downstairs, upstairs is the attic, where sundries and several mahjong tables are piled up. Maybe the people who lived here used to use the attic as a mahjong room, but now it seems to be abandoned, and the accumulated dust is very thick. Musei didn't find a suitable escape exit, nor did she find any weapons, knives, or guns that could deal with the 2 of them, not even a stick. She felt that there must be a gun in Musenning's room, but his room was locked and could not be entered, and the knives in the kitchen were also locked in the cabinet when no one was using them. Musei leaned against the window, looking out through the glass window. The trees in winter have lost their leaves, and the branches are stretched thinly. There are tall and low houses under the trees, and dogs barking can be heard faintly. It's so far away, even if you shout for help here, it's useless, right? It's a stupid idea. Maybe he was forced into a desperate situation, so even such a stupid idea would be kept in his mind over and over again. "Want to go out?" At some time, Musenning came to her side. Following Musei's line of sight, he looked at Xiao Se outside the window, and said calmly, "You can't see the wind during confinement, let's raise it in the house first, and let you go out for a walk after you are confinement." Look at these words, how considerate and gentle. Musei turned to look at him. "Musenning, why are you so perverted?" Musenning's indifferent expression froze for a moment, and then he smiled slightly, with a dark and cold smile. "I am perverted? Heh, how is it better than Murong Chang? Maybe I should be like him and find a hypnotist to hypnotize you, so that you can't leave me from now on, every day obediently open your legs and serve me on the bed. How about it? Perverted enough? You should be glad that I didn't do this, and I don't bother to do it." Musei's face became ugly. "You hate him, so you take revenge on me." "Shouldn't I hate it?" Musenning smiled. "He ruined my life, I want him to suffer for the rest of his life, that's fair. Don't you always like the word fair?" Musei's chest was filled with emotions. She didn't want to yell at him needlessly. She took a deep breath, and replied tensely, "You are already crazy." Musenning smiled faintly. "Maybe." Musei went back to her room to rest. At 5 o'clock, Musenning brought 2 bowls of red bean soup. "This is not dinner, but dessert before dinner, and Tang Tang also has a share." Tang Tang brought a bunch of bottles and jars from the drawer, which contained rainbow beans, rock candy, chocolate beans, raisins, dried cranberries, etc., and laid them out in front of Musei graciously. Children love to add all kinds of sugar and dried fruit to their desserts. Musei turned a blind eye to her overtures, and finished the bowl of red bean soup with a cold face. Tang Tang was a little disappointed, but when she saw Musenning, she became happy again. Then came dinner. Muzi finished eating obediently. She needs to recover as soon as possible, take care of her body and spirit, so that she can escape with more confidence. Muzi remained calm and stayed here peacefully. Life here is very regular. Muzening prepares 3 meals a day on time every day, and there is never a shortage of snacks and snacks. There is enough food at home, and they hardly ever go out. Therefore, Muzi's body recovered quickly. With enough energy, she began to carefully observe the people around her, or the ghosts around her. Muzening was taciturn, either preparing food in the kitchen, smoking in the yard, or shutting himself in his room. If it was not necessary, he would not have any communication with Muzi. Tang Tang is much more lively, no matter how cold Muzi's face is, she can talk to Muzi enthusiastically the next day, sharing her candy and toys, just like a child. Since you are a child, there will be times when you will be willful. Tang Tang and Muzening often quarreled.